Welcome to the Longarm University Quilt Studio. In this brief tutorial, I'm going to show you how to turn your quilt. Knowing how to quote unquote turn the quilt is a great way of working with some difficult patterns and also especially if you're doing template or ruler work. Basically, when you're turning a quilt, and it doesn't make any difference what size quilt you're turning, and yes, the sample that I'm going to be showing you is a very small quilt, but you do the steps exactly the same way. First, you want to quilt your top border, including your corners. Then, as you work the body of your quilt, on the side borders, you want to take safety pins and you want to pin them through all three layers, which is your quilt top, your batting, your backing, about every 4 to 6 inches. And as you can see on my left side border here, I've got the safety pins. The body of my quilt has already been quilted. Then you would do that on the same thing on the other side. And as you can see, I am now at the right side of my quilt, and you can see my safety pins. And you can also see that my bottom border has not been quilted yet. So you want to work, again, you want to work across your top, work the body of your quilt, put safety pins through all three layers on both of the side borders of the quilt until you get down to the bottom. At this point, leave your bottom border unstitched. We are going to take the pins off of the bottom leader, put them through the quilt top, secure the bottom edge of the quilt top, quilt the bottom border, then we're going to turn the quilt. I've completed stitching my bottom border. Now I'm going to take my quilt completely off my quilting machine. However you secure your quilt back to your leaders, you want to remove that so that the quilt is completely off the machine. Take your quilt to your cutting surface and you want to trim away your batting, your backing, and your batting to about anywhere between 1 to 2 inches, maybe a little bit wider if you have that much extra to work with, on all four sides. And then after you trim that, we're going to now then come back to the quilting machine and I'm going to show you what's going to happen next. I'm back from trimming my quilt, and on this particular quilt I trimmed 2 inches away from the raw edge of the quilt top. Then I found the middle of my quilt, put the safety pin in to mark it, and I am going to move that in just a few minutes before I start stitching, but I wanted to show you that I took that safety pin, lined it up to my center mark on my leaders, then secured my pins like I normally do to the quilt back. I'm almost ready to start quilting, but not quite yet because we still have our safety pins in. Now I don't want to take the safety pins out quite yet because what I do want to do is I want to take some straight pins and I want to pin them through all three layers, about 3/4 to an inch away from the raw edge. And I'm going to, instead of putting another pin like right there, I'm going to skip a space and I'm going to put another one in like this. And I'm going to do that all the way across the top of the quilt. Now, some of my safety pins are really close to this lines, but I'm still going to leave them in because what I'm going to do next is I'm going to bring my machine over and I'm going to put a line of stitching, and it could be basting, but I just don't even change the stitch length, and I usually have my machine set about 10 stitches per inch. And I'm just going to come and stitch a line about 1/4 inch away, and you can see that even with this top of this safety pin right here, I'm still within that 1/4 inch of space. So I'm just going to leave all these pins in there until after I stitch across the top, and once I stitch across the top, I'm going to take all the pins out. One of the main benefits of doing the turn quilt technique is the efficiency of when you're quilting your borders. Now, if you're working your borders as you're going with the quilt, say like with the freehand design, that's fine. But sometimes when you have to place something very precisely, or like I said with template work, or say for instance you have a motif like a flower motif and you want it right in the middle and you want to have it evenly spaced out, it's really much more efficient to do this turn quilt border, even though it takes a little extra time to pin the quilt and to trim it. it still is more efficient use of your time when you're actually quilting in one big long area as opposed to small little chunks. And right now, the way how my top border is, I'm ready to start quilting my new top border, which this was originally my side border, now it's my top border. I'm at the lower edge of my quilt again. Now this is the remaining side border on the turn quilt, which means then the side borders were then turned and now they were the top and the bottom borders. If you notice, I still have my safety pins in, I have straight pins in, and I have secured the edge of my top fabric to all 3 layers here. And at this point, I am ready to take all my pins out and start quilting. And it's just as simple as that to do a turn quilt, and it really doesn't take a lot of extra effort, but like I said earlier, the efficiency that you have when you're working on a long piece of fabric as opposed to short little chunks of quilting makes a huge difference in both your design and also your time.